We are Locked On Houston Astros, and we hope that you join us for a daily Locked On Astros podcast. My name is Eric Huysman. You can find me on Twitter at Eric Talk Stros. You can find the show at Locked On Astros. Your team every day. Brett, where can they find you at?
They can find me at H-Town Wheelhouse on Twitter and at Stros411 on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Always positive, always Stros.
And we have our resident expert, Clay Hensley, even though he's not really residing in Texas at the moment, but he's in San Diego. But Clay, where can they find you on Twitter?
You can find me on Twitter at chensley32 and on Instagram at Clay Hensley. But yeah, we're in Cali right now. We'll be back in Texas here pretty soon.
All right, that must be awesome, kind of going back and forth, but also kind of confusing, just like what time zone am I in?
Yeah. When you're doing shows, especially with anybody that's not on Pacific time, it becomes a little bit of a challenge because you start keeping people up late.
Yeah. So I want to go and talk about the big deal today is that's Josh James. He had surgery on his left hip on Friday. It was a labral tear. And the recovery time is approximately 6 to 8 months. I know we're talking about it off air, but when do you think that he should be at full steam and back in Astros bullpen probably?
Well, I think that, so actually I had a labral tear. Mine was in the shoulder, but it was it was not in the hip, but same sort of type of ligament. And what they have to do is they have to go in there, depending on the severity of it, of the tear, of the repair, how many anchors they have to put in. That's going to be really what's indicative in terms of how quickly he's going to be back. I know that the standard protocol will say 6 to 8 months, just like it does with everybody, 12 months, 9 to 12 months for Tommy John. But it's all going to be dependent on how severe the tear was, how many anchors they had to put in, and then obviously how he's feeling when he gets back, because that's a huge challenge coming off an injury and then trying to learn how to do some things at the highest level. So, per his, injury, I think that he's probably going to, probably be in the way of 6 to 8 months, just like they're saying. He's going to miss most of the first part of 2021, but I think that he should be at full steam, hopefully by September of next year.
Hey, Brett, before we do this, Clay, do you think that the hip issues probably led to his struggles with command this year?
Well, without a doubt, whenever you're having any type of issue with your body and you're out there pitching, it is one of those things that the subconscious starts to take over and you start protecting it more than you think you do. And what happens is you start changing arm angles, then you start favoring something, a side of the body that you typically don't when you're throwing. You're just not out there free and easy thinking about the strike zone. You're thinking about your hip. And then the last thing you probably think about is getting it to the mid on the strike. So that is something that is a challenge. And I think that what you see a lot of players go through is whenever they're trying to favor that, they lose a lot of their command and then they end up getting hurt. Whether it's not only just the hip, but you can start putting strains on the shoulder by changing your delivery. So yeah, it absolutely would affect his command.
Go ahead, Brett.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was waiting for you to do another lead in. No, what I was going to say also was with his height, with his body size, with the amount of like torque that he puts on his body. I mean, this guy, Clay, my son and I were at his first major league game. And he was, I think his first pitch was like 104 miles an hour. And this guy was juiced. He had the adrenaline flowing. But I can imagine a guy of his size, because your legs are where all your power comes from when you're pitching, that if it's extended beyond 8 months, that wouldn't be abnormal for someone his size.
I wouldn't honestly say size is okay. An issue with it, to be honest with you. I think, the heavier you are, and obviously the larger of a individual you are, you're going to put certain strains, especially when you're trying to do something like, throw the ball or hit or run or whatnot. It's going to put some certain strains on the parts of the body that typically won't. You see like a lot of tall guys that play basketball, when they retire and they get older, their knees are just shot, and there is something to be said to have that, the additional weight and size on there. I don't think that this type of injury is not something that's indicative, I think, of that. I think it's just more of just going through the pitching motion. The fact of the matter is is the delivery when somebody throws a baseball overhand is an unnatural movement. So you're constantly going as something against the body is really made to do. As opposed to going underhand. That's why you see a lot of softball pitchers out there throwing that can throw complete games without a problem, and then a day later come back and throw another complete game on Sunday. So that's kind of the difference on it. So you're already doing something that's just tearing down your body each time you do it. And I think that, maybe a little bit of the additional size to it. I think it would be more of a mechanical issue is something I would probably take a look at as opposed to size because, you're out there training. These guys are, capable of going out there and pitching. Obviously, I think that, it could be a combination of things. It can be anything from being dehydrated, where you just may not have enough water in your body at all times. A lot of people don't, really don't realize how much you have to drink. To nutrition, it could be delivery, it could be mechanics, it could be some of the size. I mean, it's just really one of those unknowns, but it's an injury that is pretty common. And so I think that I think he's going to come back and be just fine with it.
All right. Well, we're kind of talking about the bullpen. I know we had Jay Kaplan on the other day, and Brian McTaggart kind of wrote about it. He said that if Roberto Osuna is out for the 2021 season, the Astros probably will go ahead and non-tender him to save some money there. But if you're looking at the 2021 season, I know that Ryan Presley will most likely be the closer. Do you see the Astros going out and getting a big name guy like Alex Colomb or maybe Blake Trinan or somebody like that? Or you think they're going to just stick with what they have? Big names.
I think they're going to. Oh, who, me or Clay?
No, go ahead. I want to hear what you say.
Okay. Yeah. I think you go for Trinan. I think you go for a guy like that because while Ryan Presley, I think in a normal season with a normal spring training, having some off-season rest, I think he'll return to form. He's a great setup guy. I don't want him as my closer if I have other options out there. And so there's like 20 plus like relief pitchers that are free agents next year. And there's
Closing
no reason. Closing type, there's a lot less than 20 something. I don't know what the exact number is, but I think you can go out and get someone like that. If you sign him to a sweet enough deal, you have what the Astros have to offer as far as competing again, because we do know that with some bullpen pieces that they're starting 4 or starting 5, maybe not having a fifth guy, but 1 through 4, they've got some key starters. And they do need to shore up that bullpen. You shore up that bullpen and you can talk a closer into coming. You can put Presley back in the setup role. And I think you're back to where you were last year, pre-COVID, pre-injuries, and with Osuna not being there, you've got to fill that void because whether people liked Osuna or not, he did the job more than he didn't. And that closer role is key. And we saw it this year. They couldn't close out games in the regular season. They would have the lead, their bullpen fall apart, they would lose it. So that's really important. I think they go out and get a name.
I would like to think that they do. I've always it's always good to have a young crop of guys at the big league level that you've kind of cultivated as an organization, and a lot of them have kind of gone through the process. So that's something that there's something to be said for that. But you do need a veteran leader, right? Especially in the bullpen, because typically when you're coming out of the bullpen, you're usually coming out in situations where there's a lot of traffic, and there's a lot of stress. It's high situation most of the time, and especially if you're going to be one of the key guys called towards the end of the game to shut it down or to keep your game or your team in it, so that you can give your team a chance to win. So that being said, I would like to see them go out and Houston go out and get one of those top frontline closers. I think that pitching by far none is what really wins these playoff games. Obviously, going out there and shutting down an offense, and like I've said it before, good pitching beats good hitting any day of the week. But you also got to have your bullpen. Bullpen, in my mind, wins championships. They're the ones that don't get a lot of the credit sometimes, maybe throughout the year. But I think when you see a situation in a playoff game and a starter starts to falter early, and they come in and throw up some goose eggs there, and then the team ends up winning or ends up tying it back or coming back when winning, that's when you start to see the value of these guys. So I think a veteran closer to allow some of these guys to slot into more of a role that's cemented for them to be seventh, eighth guys, sixth, seventh, eighth guys,
Right.
whatever you want to call it, your setup man. I think they need to go out and get a frontline closer. And I think that would be a huge stopgap for them for sure.
Somebody I forgot to mention was actually Liam Hendriks.
Yeah, I was going to ask you.
But he's been very outspoken towards the Astros, and
He has.
that would be kind of awkward situation. And I don't know if he'll even, because he hasn't minced his words. He said how it is, and so I don't see him coming Houston. That's why I didn't really mention his name.
Yeah, well, Alex, hey, real quick on that. On that being said, though, look, everybody's got an opinion, right, until it probably hits them in the wallet. So I think if Houston was going to give them a pretty good offer, and everybody's always your enemy when you're on the other side of the, in the other dugout. So that being said, there's a lot of guys I played with that I absolutely could not stand and hated with a passion when we played against them. And then whenever they ended up being my teammates, turned out to be some of the best teammates and best guys ever, which you love. So then it's kind of one of those things. But I mean, you would have to be very well positioned to be turning down any type of potential offer that may be higher in value over others due to an opinion that you had from a team earlier. That would be kind of ridiculous in my mind.
Speaking of that, speaking of that, I'm actually trying to find a way to get Mr. Bauer on the show because he is putting a lot out there from Houston. He's just trolling. Tweeted out today. He is trolling.
That's what I don't like, man.
Today. Well, he said this. He goes, I was having brunch today, and a Houston fan said, we would love to have you as an Astro. And he's like, do all Astros fans like that? And he put a little pull up, yes and no. And I think it was like 80% no. And then I was like, hey, I don't know about that, but I sure would love for you to come on Locked On Astros. We need to talk, And
well, like the thing is with the problem that, and I see what you're saying with it, and I don't have a problem with a lot, but this is just the way the game is today. There's a lot of self-promotion. I don't think there's a lot of guys that could have got away with running their mouths the way that they do in today's game. Even when I was first coming up, I don't like it. Just go out there, play the game, let your game do the talking. And you know what? One thing I would like to caution Mr. Bauer about is it's a humbling game. He should know that. And you're never bigger than the game. You're in a position right now to go out and write your check, show some professionalism, show some character of who you are, and quit lobbying about how great you are and who should be signing you. Because trust me, there's going to be a big piece of apple pie somewhere along these lines, and it's going to make you just have a little bit of egg on your face when there's no reason to do that at all. I think that he could be a good addition to Houston's team for sure. But what Houston needs to go look for, in my mind, in that ballpark, is power sinker guys throwing hard fastballs that have depth. Something that they can go out, have somebody be efficient with, and go out and give them, 5 to 7 strong innings every start that they can rely on that. Is Trevor Bauer that guy? I don't know. Look, we were just 3 years ago, the guy was like searching for a club and was a mess, so like mentally, just because he was struggling. So I don't like the ups and downs like that. When you look at a ball player and being one as well, if you're going to have the down times and what you will have, you just got to level through those. But, on the one side where you're in a position in the driver's seat, it's also not the time also to kind of be spouting off and trying to act like you can write your own check, because that's another thing that the Houston Astros, I can tell you right now, would not like in the locker room. It's not just about the guy out there on the bump. It's about what he's going to do to the club. A guy that's tweeting while a team is losing, when New York was losing, tweeting, it looks like New York might need some pitching. I'm like, give me a call or something like that. He sent a tweet out. I was just like, it's not, a time, I think, especially when another ball club is playing and losing, that you need to be telling them that you're the answer. So I don't know if that's the type of guy that they're going to want in their locker room. And trust me, I don't think that if it was something where they brought him in and he ended up breaking it down, it would be one of those decisions where you're like, man, it wasn't really worth it. So it's a whole package. It's not just about what they're doing on the mound.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, here's the deal, just real quick, if I could jump in there. New York got Cole and they couldn't do it. So it's like Trevor Bauer, like, how does he feel like he's more than Cole? And I mean, that's just the thing.
Well, not even that, but it's not even that, but just don't even your opinion on that, like to tell a team like, you're the answer or whatever, and then like just self-promotion of it. Like, dude, you had a great year. Just let it ride. They're going to come get you. You know what I mean? I don't know. But like I said, the game's changed. It's a lot different than it is now. You got the bat flips and this and that. I feel like back in the day, even when Nolan Ryan, those guys were pitching, and even at the beginning of my career, like you would get earholed for doing that kind of stuff during the playoffs. So it's a different game. It's just one of the way it is. And, it's one of those things that us old guys got to adjust to, I guess.
Speaking of being a different game, I know coming up, we'll go ahead and talk a little bit about Michael Brantley. Should we go, the Astros offer him a qualifying offer in today's market? But if you're trying to update your car and you need a part or some type, whatever you need to make your car run again like it did in the 2017 World Series, where can they go, Brett?
Well, they can go to RockAuto.com. RockAuto.com has reliably low prices, has a great search engine, and it is the place to go for your auto parts needs. They won't upcharge you like a professional mechanic. They won't try to get you a part that you don't need. They'll get it to you on time. Instead of going into the store having to wear a mask, go to RockAuto.com, search for your make, your model, what you need, get that glass pack, get that muffler, get that high beam lamp, whatever you need. When you go there and you are you're checking out, you put in the where did you hear about us box, you put Locked On MLB, let them know we sent you. RockAuto.com, reliably low prices, reliably just amazingly easy to use internet, all your parts you'll ever need at RockAuto.com.
All right. So speaking of all the pitching you'll ever need, Clayton Kershaw just broke Justin Verlander's all-time strikeout record in the playoffs with 206. So I think Verlander did it last year, and now Kershaw has done it. And so at the beginning of the playoffs, everybody was like, wow, this guy is such a sucky postseason pitcher. And now they're all singing his praises and all that. And Dave Roberts just took him out after 5 2/3 innings with a 2-run lead. Do you think that was the right call, Clay?
Well, I think the young man that came in behind him throwing 159 miles an hour did pretty good. So it looks like the right call right now. It's one of those that I think that Dave has said before that anytime you're having to pull out Kershaw in a game is always difficult. So it's going to be an armchair quarterback type move, right? Everybody's going to have their opinion. If it works out well for them, tonight, then it'll be the right move. If it doesn't, then obviously, he made the biggest mistake ever, right? So right. I think is it Day, the young
May?
Yeah. He came. Yeah, there you go. May. He absolutely came in and was like throwing 100 and like, I mean, these kids are throwing so hard now, but he punched some tickets, got out of the inning, which I think Kershaw was pretty happy about.
Yeah.
No, yeah. And I think, last night, if we're talking about Dave Roberts, because he's obviously been the topic du jour because of last night's just crazy, amazing comeback victory, the most untimely of errors by Taylor and everybody instantly. And I kind of was like, Kenley Jansen continues his like off-season woes, but if Taylor, fields that ball cleanly, the Rays simply tie it and they don't go ahead. And who knows what happens in extra innings. If the Dodgers come back in extra innings and win, then we're not talking about Kenley Jansen losing the game. We're talking about maybe he blew the lead, but Kenley Jansen has that kind of monkey on his back. And Dave Roberts he's gotten a lot of criticism over these last few years. I mean, this is their third World Series in 4 seasons. And I've really tried hard to stay away from trying to compare them to like another sport. But if they don't win this year again, it's almost like you're looking at kind of what the Buffalo Bills did in the 90s, where they went to 4 Super Bowls and they just could not win that big game.
Right.
And the thing about baseball is different is because it depends. It was literally that one play. And that one play, if Taylor fields that cleanly, I really think the Dodgers get out of that inning. They go to extra innings, and that was probably advantage Dodgers. And because you took away a big rally, but Brett Phillips is a former Astro, and Brett Phillips actually thanked Bobby Heck for drafting him when he got drafted with the Astros, and that was his first postseason hit. was in the World Series, a game winner. And that's what makes this game so beautiful. And even though I'm not a Rays fan, like I was cheering for the end of that game like that was my team, because that's just what baseball does to you, you know?
Right. Yeah. No, it was I read an article about, he obviously has been the last guy kind of off the bench for them. And his wife, who hadn't seen in a few weeks, left early, left in the middle of the seventh with her mom. They're there at the game, and she left early because she didn't think he was going to get in. And they got back to the hotel, and lo and behold, she turned on the TV and was starting to see these late inning heroics. And she told her mom, "I think I'm going to be sick." So they had an interesting phone call. But the character of that young man, about what he did. I heard about the phone call that he had with his wife, and they were talking about that. And he said, "You know what? And that's just the way it was supposed to be." And just those little comments like that kind of give you the kind of character of him. And that's what we tell a lot of people. And we tell a lot of kids also that are trying to play the game, and younger kids, that always got to be ready. You always have to be ready. It's a team sport, and as a guy, his wife had even thought that he was probably done for the night and took it home early, and he stayed in it. And that's the kind of what you want there. You want that kind of player. Even if you're the last man on the bench, you come out and you just make something happen. Doesn't necessarily mean you got to hit a game winner or hit a home run, but make something happen. And look, he made something happen. I mean, when I saw that, I just kept watching the replay, and I was like going, I got this feeling in my stomach, and I was sitting here. Mandy was with me, and I was just going, I don't even know what to say right now, but because both sides of the dugout are just like in absolute shock. That happened so fast. I could see myself after that game, if I was in the Dodgers uniform, that it would probably be 2 hours after that game, I'd still have my uniform and my spikes on with my feet up in my locker, just going, the heck just happened? What just happened? And then you got to start tricking yourself and going, okay, there's tomorrow, guys. There's tomorrow. We'll just stay positive. Let's we always got tomorrow, but
Right.
as soon as anything starts to happen, you got to be like, why did we just drop that? And I know that everybody was sick to their stomach on it for sure.
Yeah. So let's go and talk a little bit more about the Astros. Let's talk about Michael Brantley. There's a lot of talk right now about, do you offer him a qualifying offer? George Springer, it's a no-brainer. You're going to offer him a qualifying offer. But Michael Brantley, he's 33. He is coming off 2 straight seasons batting 300 with the Astros, and he's been pretty good. He doesn't strike out a lot. He's not the best defender out there, but he's no Carlos Lee out there. But definitely, if you offer him the $18.9 million qualifying offer, he may take it, because he may not get that much this year.
Well, look, in my opinion, and you start looking at Brantley's career and what he's done, even when at his time with Cleveland, who actually didn't offer, and where he signed the deal for Houston, with Houston. So he's, over the course of, even when he was with Cleveland, he was consistently one of the most productive hitters. And so that being said, he carried that over, inking a 2-year deal worth $32 million with Houston, and he's performed over the course of it. I mean, let's be honest, he has. And what is it? I think of the numbers at 824 plate appearances as an Astro. He's put up a 309 slash line, and that's pretty good. 309, 370, and 497 on his slash line. So that's pretty strong. How are you going to replace that if they don't? So that's what you got to look at in the free agent market. Is there going to be something that's going to cost a little bit more? Well, we might have to, if we let him go or we don't offer the qualifying offer. I mean, a compensation pick's not really going to bring that much value at this point. I think that I think they offered. I think he probably accepts, and I think that they bring him back.
Yeah, I think they have a chance of bringing him back. I don't know, if there's any other club out there that will offer him that. I don't know what clubs out there that have the space in the outfield to sign him at his age. More than likely, he would have to be an American League signee, unless baseball goes with the universal DH next year, which I don't know if they will. I know the players have been vying for it, and that would actually give Brantley a more wide open market. If they went universal DH in the National League, that would be a huge wrench in the the Astros plans of keeping him. But I think if it's only in the American League, then there's a few clubs that could use him. The clubs I know that could use him right offhand, like the Red Sox, Orioles, guys that just aren't really competitive. You got the Yankees have their DH, the Blue Jays have their guys. I don't know, maybe Toronto, but I think he makes sense here because he's kind of grown a part of the team. Now, I believe that if it looks like Springer stays, I think that helps Brantley and Stan, because Brantley and Springer have become like best friends. I mean, Springer really looks up to Brantley, and that's like a special bond. And I think if one stays, you probably get to keep the other.
Yep. Well, I mean, look, I think George Springer's obviously a slam dunk for a qualifying offer decision, but the thing is, look, you start getting into the point of the career that Brantley's in. He's not getting younger. He is still productive on a very high level, and it's like you start thinking about, if you're Brantley, where am I going to have the best chance to get back into the playoffs? Because that's really what you want. I mean, everybody gets locked up on these contracts with the free agents, but the free agents, trust me, are not only looking at dollars, but they're also looking at chance to win. Nobody wants to go make a ton of money and win 100 ball games. It's brutal. It's not fun. And Brantley, like you said, has a history here, has a rapport with the club. He's getting close with some of the teammates. They're definitely talking this offseason about what others' plans are going to be, because it's like the times when you see a lot of the free agent basketball, like LeBron James and all these guys are all kind of colluding together, trying to get to Miami one year to see if they can go win it all in one team. Like the same thing kind of happens with every free agent in every sport. So Springer, Brantley, they're talking, they're discussing, hey, what are you thinking? Where you at with this? And the reality of it is, these guys aren't going to have a better chance with another club to get to the postseason than they are with the Houston Astros. So I think that plays a lot in it. And at the same time, too, look, the qualifying offer that Brantley would be offered is more on a 1-year basis than what he was making on his 2-year contract. I'm not really up to on what the structure was for the 2 years of what the pay was, but look at qualifying offer, 2 years of that, you're at $37 million. Brantley's current deal right now, $16 million. So he would be making more this next year than he did last year. So that's an increase. He's not going back, and that's something he's going to look at. I think if I'm Brantley, absolutely. You know what? Go out, make more this next year if it's from the dollars perspective, accept the qualifying offer and start just raking, and then have them extend you throughout the middle of the season at some point to maybe buy it under 2 years. Talk about contracts at that point. But I think to stick with the club, make more money, security and all that stuff, but at the same time be with a club that's going to make it to the postseason, has a good chance to make it to the postseason, most than any other club out there, I think he's back.
A lot of the reason why the Astros made it playoffs this year, despite the struggles at the plate, was their defense. And the Astros actually had 3 finalists for the Gold Glove. Carlos Correa at shortstop, I think everybody kind of knew that. Yuli Gurriel at first base. That was not surprising. I mean, it was semi-surprising, especially when you see Choi out there doing all the little splits and everything. But something that would probably surprise Astros fans was Kyle Tucker. This is, remember the first year he was up there, everybody was like, he looks so slow. He looks like he's not interested out there in outfield. And look what he's done now. And of the 3 finalists there, I think it's Alex Gordon and Lourdes Gurriel are the other 2 candidates. But Tucker has the 3 defensive runs saved, so that could lead him to maybe win the award. But Alex Gordon is retiring. This is his last year, so maybe they give it to him for that. But are you surprised at all, Clay, with any of these selections?
I actually not. There's not really one that's gonna, I guess, stick out to where it's like a big shocker. Some of the names you would probably think would be, I guess, more names that are probably recognizable to most of the people around the country that are watching the game. But if you look at the numbers, man, the numbers don't lie, and these guys deserve to be there. There's a case for Maldonado, obviously, to kind of be in this conversation. He won it in 2017. But it's a shortened season, and I think that's the biggest difference on a lot of this when it comes to awards, because you're not getting the full baseline, or you're not getting a full, sample of an entire season of what people are doing throughout, 162 games, as well as going in the playoffs if the team reaches it. So, it's a little bit different this year. I think you'll probably see a little bit more recognizable names coming into next year if baseball does get a full season in. But you know what? Hey, you got to say congrats to those guys that are taking advantage of it and going out there and throwing up numbers and playing some hard defense.
Yeah, so typically the winners are determined by the managers, by the coaches, and also some defensive stats. And this year, the Gold Glove is being decided 100% on defensive stats. So they are going to announce what those like totals or where they got them, like whenever the award is announced, whenever the singular person that gets that award. And I think that's why Kyle Tucker is where he is. But that's what is a little shocking to me, because Martin Maldonado, where I think if it was a normal season and players and managers are voting, they're definitely, every one of them are putting Martin Maldonado on that ballot because of how he had to anchor a bullpen of 9 minor leaguers, how he had to deal with knowing his closer wasn't coming back, knowing Justin Verlander wasn't coming back, with just everything going on. And he caught several days in a row on and on and on. He didn't have any rest. I mean, this guy was out there day in and day out. And he would, to me, if we were to go out and pick the 2020 MVP for the Houston Astros this year, I would have to say it's Martin Maldonado, hands down, because he's like the quarterback of the club. And Clay, you know this better than we'll ever know it in our lifetime, is that a catcher is so important to a pitcher. If you don't have that rapport with the catcher, if the catcher isn't able to calm the pitcher down, if the catcher and pitcher don't get in line, man, the wheels can fall off really easily.
Without a doubt. I mean, it is pretty important. If they're not there, then the umpire is going to be catching fastballs in the chest all night long. So they got to be, they got to be there. No, but the relationship between obviously your battery mate, right? That's what they're called, and what we call each other. When you talk about pitchers and catchers, your battery mate has got to be exactly just that. You guys got to be on the same page. When you have a veteran catcher back there, you have a tendency to just listen to what the guy's saying, throw whatever he's throwing down, not really shake off. I don't think I shook off very much for the first 2 years of my career. We had some pretty salty catchers back there. Phil Nevin was back there one time, which was awesome. Maybe he got tossed one time because umpire was terrible, and he's like not calling strikes. I'm throwing him down the middle, and finally turned around and just lit him up, and that fires the ball club up, and Mike Piazza was behind the dish at one point. Ramon Hernandez, who's unbelievable receiver, was behind the dish when I first came up. So, having that veteran catcher, that presence, is you hit the nail on the head. There is a captain sort of tag that goes along with that, but you want to have that relationship. I think that when you start talking about how a catcher is handling a younger staff, I don't know if that's necessarily in the conversation. I think probably in the conversation, if you're, like you said, if you're the coaches and the players and whatnot are voting on this, because they got to see that firsthand and the struggles. I don't think the general population or even fans that are watching baseball understand the dynamic that is so difficult for a catcher when it's a pitcher that he's not very used to catching or calling games for, doesn't know his strengths, doesn't know his weaknesses in certain situations. And at the big league level, it's tough to be able to navigate that, treacherous waterway, so to speak, in the middle of a game at the highest level, when you have these guys coming in and your goal at the end is trying to win the ball game, not trying to get this kid's season. So there's a lot to be said about that. There's a lot to be said about, catchers that are able to do that. A lot of catchers aren't. I think you're probably right in the sense when the conversations come to about being able to be voted on, this award being voted on from staff and players and teammates and whatnot. Yeah, he should probably be in the conversation. But I think overall, when you start thinking about the Gold Glove on a national stage of winning that award, I don't think a lot of the fan base and even writers and whatnot that may be voting those years past may not understand that dynamic, which is very important.
Well, what I like is leading up to this, a certain network has the shredder out there, and it kind of tells them who should win the award and all that. So we'll have to see, but that's just basically right around the corner. And guys, you know what else is right around the corner? The Astros off season. There's a lot for us to talk about all off season. Thank you, Clay, once again for joining in on the Locked On Astros podcast, and awesome input on everything you said so far. And guys, we'll be back this week. We do have Ben Ryder on. So we're really excited about that. And we'll be talking some more Astros. And thank you for listening to Locked On Astros podcast. We'll talk to you later.